Welcome everyone. So we are like excited as anything to kind of show you what it is all about to have ChatGPT, what it can do for L&D as a stream or as an industry and so on. I'm going to share my screen and we have a just so we today have Marianne, DJ, and Raj as our panelists. Thank you so much and welcome to the webinar, which is hosted by Guide. What we are going to talk about today is how AI and specifically ChatGPT can change, impact, transform organizational training and development. So that's where we are. And uh, we have a it's been a lot of things that have happened like in last 3-4 months, right? I'm not going to waste a lot of time because I know people are very excited. I'm going to just introduce our panelists very quickly, and then we are going to jump in right away. So we have with us Marianne Polson. She is a Chief Learning Officer for Polson Positive Consulting. And she has immense experience working with multiple organizations, going through devising their learning strategies and so on and so forth. We also have DJ Jeffries, who is Assistant VP of HR at Citibank. And we also have Raj Tanwar, who is Advisory Council member of Forbes Human Resource Council. And I will be coordinating the session. I'm Prasanna. I'm co-founder and CEO of a company and product called Guide, GYDE. What we are going to do today is let's just go through the agenda real quick, and then so that we can know what's going to happen in this 1 hour. So we are going to talk about what has exactly ChatGPT has done in a way, and why it is successful, what is generative AI, what is it all about. Then we'll directly jump to the training and development challenges that are there. The usual challenges, the challenges that are being thrown by these kind of technologies and so on. We'll explore what's new, latest in generative AI. We'll clear the buzz around ChatGPT. So see, the world is living in two extremes right now. One extreme is ChatGPT can do anything, and the other extreme is it's of no use. It just parrots out the next best word that it can guess. So, but the reality is, as always, it's kind of in between. Then we'll actually go to the demo of ChatGPT, and we are going to show you a few different prompts that are specifically tailored for the L&D or training and development as a purpose. Then we'll go a little bit on the future, and then we'll have a question and answer session. So that's what we are going to do today. So how did we get there? I mean, what exactly has changed, So Marianne, I want to throw this question to you. So we are all excited about ChatGPT and so on and so forth. So what it means and how we have got here? Your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. Well, I want to welcome everybody today, and my colleagues, my fellow panelists. We talked about how it was hard to sleep yesterday because of the fact that we're so excited to help bring you this information. And specifically, I want to take down your anxiety meter, right? And I don't know about you, but I heard about ChatGPT really pretty much only like about the end of last year. And I decided I'm not going to be left behind. I wanted to grab it by the horns and be there at the beginning. And so, for example, we have here, how long did it take to get 100 million, people on these different platforms? And we are like right now, my friends, we are at the precipice of like being at the beginning of Google, being at the beginning of Microsoft. So we have a unique opportunity to, again, learn from this new technology. And just like Prasanna said, it is not perfect. Let me say that again, it is not perfect. And so by you joining this symposium, this webinar, you're able to take your learning as a learning and development professional to the next level. So we have some tips along the way.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mary. So I just want to reflect one point here, that it just has taken 2 months. That is like outstanding, right? Uh, I mean, and we have lived through the Instagrams and TikTok already. So that's like doubling down or improving on that is a real cool scenario. And Okay, so let's just engage an audience here. So what I want to do is we launch a quick poll around how do you better understand your experiences with GPT language models. So have you used or interacted with any GPT language model? If Shubham, if you can launch a poll of this on this line, and then we can get started and moving ahead. So generative AI, right? We have been talking to Marianne and Raj and Jeffries all along, and uh, one fascinating aspect of it is like how it has evolved over time. So what is what it takes to generate or create a model like that. So as you can see on the slide, by the way, they released GPT-4 yesterday, like literally yesterday. And so just move one had like 100 million odd parameters, and look at the growth that has happened in the number of parameters, right? So Raj, if you want to kind of understand what exactly this means, can you shed some light, and what exactly this is, basically what it means to have such a strong model in place?
Sure. So Prasanna, I'll begin by because most of us here, we are either training and development professionals or people who believe in AI, and humans understand story the best. Am I right? We're storytellers. We love the idea of cloning, a new world, a fascination coming to us, and blowing us away. So this all started there, and I would say the artificial intelligence is nothing but cloning human intelligence. In simple word, how did we reach there? Let's take an example. When a human is thrown to a particular stimuli or a subject, what happens? You do conditioning and there's a generalized learning that happens. That generalized learning, when reaches a stage of logical inference or reasoning, that's the stage wherein you have to make a decision, whether it's a point one decision or a point two or multiple point decision. That leads to ultimately problem solving. So in short, it's a generalized learning which leads to reasoning, in turn give us problem solving, period. If you look at it, the auto-regressive generated transformer, what it does is it picks up the generalized learning concepts which are there in this world. When you throw a question to it, it tries to make a logical inference out of it and then gives you a best possible probable solution. It happens beautifully well in a different network which have evolved over a period of time. It started with long back in 1950s, called as perceptron, which then became expert systems and a very, very essential part of AI. I'm talking little technical here, but you need to know about this. This is called as neural networks, which are nothing but similarly like a human brain. You have neurons in the human brain. Same way you have neural networks, which are nothing but set of logical comprehended information that lies there, which are then synthesized by deep learning, in turn used by machine learning, which converts into AI. So in simple words, as I said, it's a learning, reasoning, and problem solving capability, which combines together and gives you the best of this world, similarly cloning like a human intelligence. That's how it works.
Yeah, yeah. That's an amazing insight, Raj. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, I'm just astonished. So there are few reports suggesting that GPT-4, it might have 1 trillion parameters. I was like, oh gosh, it's like crazily
True.
big model, and just to take your point ahead, Raj, before we move. Uh, for everyone on the audience here, so how these models work is the more parameters you have, its ability to predict and its ability to generate more precise, accurate responses increases. So that's and look at the exponential progression that it's having, right, in number of parameters. So it's just crazy. I mean, I just don't have words on what exactly is happening. Uh, Okay, so I'm quickly moving on. So what we are going to do here is we are going to take a step back in a way. So like the Sheldon says in Big Bang Theory, right? When he wanted to teach physics to Penny, uh, he always Penny just wanted to understand, okay, what Leonard does, and but she chose maybe a wrong teacher, because he took her all the way through the 2600 years of history, starting from Greece and so on and so forth. So we are not going to do that, but we are going to do a little bit of that in a way, because before we go to, in a way, generative AI, and what exactly AI has been, or what exactly the generative AI is doing. Uh, 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 so this generative AI is basically, you can imagine this as a big neural network, big generative model that learns to predict the next best word possible. So it all start. So AI has a much bigger compass than generative AI. So there is vision, there is normal NLP, there is statistical model, there is machine learning, deep learning, and so on and so forth. So generative AI is like a subset of it in a way. And so when you say like self-driving cars, right? That's mostly has to do with the image and vision part of AI, and generative AI. So although there is an AI called DALI 2, which generates images, but the why we are here today is basically the chat part of it, which is like chat generative AI, which is ChatGPT in a way. So if you go back to what Raj was mentioning, in a way, that it all started from the machine learning, statistical modeling. I still remember when we were doing the regression analysis and calling it AI in those golden days. And then from the regression analysis to all the way up to this chat GPT is a long journey that AI as an industry has taken. Uh, so I'm going to come back to the topic at hand in a way. So DJ, I'm going to need your inputs here. So can you kind of tell me what exactly the what comes to your mind when you think about AI, chat GPT, generative AI, and the challenges that are there for training and learning and development as an industry or as a sector? Can you shed some light on that?
Sure, yeah. And first, thank you so much for having me here. This is such an exciting time. And I want to say that I've had a lot of conversations about this. I know that people are excited, they're hungry to learn, but I also know that there are some people who have fears and who are a little anxious about everything, because if you're not deep into AI, this work seemed to come out of nowhere. It's like, one day no one's talking about it, and the next day it's like, it has 1 billion data points, it can do anything, the potential is unlimited. So I think it's helpful to say, if you're a little bit anxious or concerned, I understand, it's justified, but the reality is most of us have already been using AI in all of our lives, so if you use Apple or iPhone, you use Siri, which uses AI. If you have Netflix or Hulu, they use AI, Amazon uses AI. So it's already integrated into our lives to an extent. And I think ChatGPT is just another form. It's not something that we necessarily need to be afraid of, although I understand the anxieties. And that would be the first challenge that I would say. If you are a learning and development professional who is looking to leverage this in your organization, there's a lot of anxiety about it. People are thinking, oh, if we bring this in, will they still need me to come up with learning objectives? Will they still need me to come up with training plans? Am I going to lose my job? And so you get into a situation where people feel like they need to compete with the AI. And what the reality is that this AI, ChatGPT, is good, but it's not a replacement for professional workers so much as it is a complement to professional workers. So I was watching the demo yesterday, and one thing he said was, ChatGPT is not perfect, but neither are you. But together, you can come together and make something truly transformative and revolutionary. And he said you can take it to new heights, which I thought was a great term, taking it to new heights. So when you think about the limitations, obviously, AI still has this problem where it sometimes hallucinates, which is where it's trained to fill in gaps where it doesn't actually know the answer, right? So if you ask it, can you come up with some articles on this topic that were written in the last 3 months? Well, we know ChatGPT doesn't go up to that point. So it says, you know, I can kind of predict what those articles might look like and what people who write articles like that might look like. But in the real world, they don't exist. So you always have to take an eye to it using your expertise and your knowledge and say, okay, does this really make sense? Let me double check this. And you also need to be creative. So one of the other limitations is that you need to know exactly what you want from this. And if you don't know, you need to prompt it to ask you questions to clarify. Because if you go in and you give it a prompt that's not good, it's like garbage in and garbage out. And as you can see, some of the stuff on the slide, limited access to information, that's really a limit in the data set. Even though the data set is huge and growing, there's still a limit right now. And so over time, that'll probably be less of a limitation, but it exists. Limited training resources, right? They only could put into the model what was available to them, so they don't have everything. There's limited time for training the users. Inadequate feedback, I would say, and this is my biggest point for people who are using this tool, like if you can, give OpenAI feedback about the responses, give it feedback about your concerns, give it things about what gives you pause, because that's all we can do to be involved in the development of this process. Not all of us are technical people. We're learning and development specialists, but we can tell them, hey, I'm afraid about this, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that, because there's an old saying, you know, if you're not at the table, then you might be on the menu, and we don't want to be on the menu. So we want to be involved. And then also just like if you work at a big company, confidentiality concerns, right? You want to make sure what you're putting in there is okay to train the model. You don't want to give them any secrets. You don't want to put your secret sauce out there. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Prasanna, can I add to that?
yeah, of course, Marian.
And kind of piggyback a little bit of what Raj says, is that it is this ChatGPT for the learning and development world. It is a complement. It is a starting point that we can use. So therefore, it's not going to replace our jobs. It's going to supplement it, make it better. For those people, don't look at the gray hair, but for those people who've been around in learning and development before, wouldn't we have loved Google back in the day? Certainly, I would have loved to have Google and Siri and Alexa and all those wonderful things back when I was in school. But embrace the change, and specifically, it can help us save tremendous amounts of times. It can help generate content, but again, it can be a starting point. It can also, my friends, answers based on the information you feed it based on your module that you're developing. And it can even come up with some interactive scenarios. If you wanted to have some role plays, you can have it be a little bit like a virtual assistant. And for those folks who are international trainers, it can have some language translation, which you would need to double check.
Yeah, yeah. So, Marian, do you want to kind of double click on the peer side of it before we move ahead? That the L&D professionals today I mean, why they should not be worried about ChatGPT? Can we answer that question before we move ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, GPT can answer, again, a wide variety of questions, but just like DJ said, garbage in, garbage out, okay? So it's just like a cookbook. You follow the recipe, but guess what? If you don't have the right ingredients, it's still not going to taste the same and be of great quality. So the idea is that make sure that you are engaged. And what we mean by that is come attend seminars and webinars like this. Read industry publications. My friends, this morning when I woke up, because it's morning here in California, I had no less than 12 email newsletters that I'm a part of talking about AI. And again, I have to devote some time on a daily basis to keep up with it, but I want to keep up with it because I'm grabbing it by the horns. I want to maximize it. And this is going to make me and my teams look even better. There's so many online courses. And one thing that DJ kind of touched on is that there's a lot of people talking about it, but I have yet to find, besides OpenAI, one know-it-all expert, meaning this is the time for us to learn and challenge each other. And now that I know Raj and DJ, boy, I'm going to pick their brain when I get stuck on something like, hey, I tried this prompt, which is just a request. You do prompts all the time in Google, searches, what time is it in Pakistan? What time is it in England? That is a simple prompt. But again, I'm going to look on my new colleagues for some help. And again, experiment. DJ, you were saying that you played on it. I have to limit myself on ChatGPT because I start on a project, but then I want to challenge it. And sometimes and again, it's quite honest, but again, it does have limitations. So inspect what you expect. And the last thing I'll say is, please do give them feedback, because our feedback, and it takes you a few extra moments, that's going to help us in the long run. Does that help out, Prasanna?
Yep. Thank you so much, Marianne. That's really helpful. So one point I want to double click on what DJ said was like the prompt engineering is going to become very, very attractive and very, very key subject in going forward, because so using ChatGPT in an appropriate way requires you to get and design and ask it intelligent prompts. That still we have to do it. Prompts are not going to be automated. So that's one point I wanted to make sure, just wanted to highlight before we move ahead. I'm going to come to you, Raj. What do you think from L&D or HR standpoint, the things that that can be solved using something like ChatGPT or generative AI? Can you help us with that a little?
Sure. Prasanna, I have a slightly contrarian thought, but at the same time, I do believe in everything which is spoken yet. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Raj.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And why I'm saying I have a slightly contrarian thought, I personally believe that we need to be ready for it. When I say we need to be ready for it, we have seen disruption happening at unprecedented pace. Up till December or November, early 2022, nobody had an idea about what ChatGPT. We are doing seminars today. There are articles which are written. There's so much of material which is going all around. It's exactly the same way as in like couple of transformation came in the past and they disrupted the whole industry. Industry kept on talking, saying that nothing is going to happen, and everything happened at the same time. We need to learn quickly and fast. That's what my mantra is, to survive. It is not going to take jobs away. That's not my worry. My worry is that if we do not learn this technology faster, the technology would move faster than us. And I'll give you a contextual example of it. Nothing against Google. It's a great platform, beautiful platform, but all this while, it never bother about my contextual search when I do on Google. What I mean by that, if I go to Google, I do a search A, B, and C. All three are considered as separate individual search. While you go on ChatGPT, it keeps the topic very relevant and contextual. What I mean by that, the moment I'll go and search something and I again reply, paraphrase it for me or give me an aspect of what Harvard Business School thinks about it, it'll keep the same search and it'll give me more predictive model generated response on the top of it, which keeps my, I would say, the search very relevant and contextual. It doesn't go out of the league. It keeps it there and keeps on refining. Every time you can ask it to even either concise it down or convert into points or get an alternate view, which is beautiful. I have never seen anything like that, giving me so many responses of different kind. The second thing I would say is that it does a lot of data crunching and artificial simulation. I can share my example. Right now, I'm doing my post-graduation additionally, in data sciences and product management. I know an HR guy has nothing to do with data sciences and product management, but I'm doing it because I personally believe learning is very, very important. You will not believe I've been able to build level 3 data models here on ChatGPT, and it beautifully supports me in terms of interacting with it and getting an answer back. If the same I would expect from my faculty, either the faculty will get frustrated or I'll get frustrated and my learning will take a mass dip. But here it's not happening. Every time I ask a question, it not only explains me the same data model back, why it is happening, and also give me a predictive analytics on the top of it, what I can expect after that. It also changes the tone of writing. It's so beautifully done that if you put a search on it and say that I could not understand it, can you convert this into a learning of somebody like a 10-year-old? It beautifully replies back. I couldn't believe it when I did it myself. And it can come to a level of learning that you cannot imagine, and you can again take it steep up. So that's wonderful. It can translate things very well. So as a learning and development professionals, if you have designed a curriculum or a course which is there in Asia, and if you want to replicate it in Europe or Spain, somewhere else, you can do beautifully well. It also validates the learning. And I'll share a small little incident with you. We were talking about, and as a part of my product management course that I'm doing, we were talking about personas and how do you build personas. And people who are there in product like you, who are an entrepreneur yourself, you know how difficult it is to build a persona. I built a persona for a product and I was not very sure who to ask and how to validate it. I went to the ChatGPT, I asked it, and it gave me very beautiful perspective, reverse, saying that you did miss this aspect, you missed this aspect, and you missed that aspect, which I loved it because, again, as I said, I was thinking that whatever persona I have created, it's great, but I got a different aspect to it. So it can validate your learning. Most important, I even asked, can you give me more ideas? And it generated for me. So that again worked beautifully well. Last, most important, I'd say that you can also use it for conversation and advices, and do even as a trainer, if you're there, there's an API integration that is happening, and you would know it, what I'm talking about. There are organizations which are delivering learning and development courses and assessment papers which are coming. You can even take help of ChatGPT, train it, and you can assess these papers. So life is going to be beautifully wonderful, let me tell you. And it's full of fascination. That's time coming ahead. And I feel it's a time for transformation.
Yeah, I mean, truly, Raj, this is amazing. And congratulations to you. I mean, you are doing product management and data science, I heard. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, that's really awesome. DJ, what do you think, like, the benefits of incorporating generative AI into like learning or HR side of it? Can you I want your kind of opinions, expertise or experience on that as a topic.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what Raj was saying too, because I feel like what he mentioned was such a good, important reason why we can use it. And in a good use case, for example, when you don't know what you're looking for, you need a different perspective, it's very easy to go in. And I also want to underscore the fact that I don't think that this is a replacement for Google, for example. I think a lot of us, when we go to Google, we do what we call an exploratory search, right? Like I might know the keywords, I might know kind of what I'm looking for, but maybe I'll stumble upon something that's, really interesting that wasn't necessarily what I was looking for. And so I think that's a separate use case, but I do think what Raj is onto is that it can help you clarify your thinking. So let's say I kind of have a general idea about what I think this course will be about, but I don't know like what are the keywords that are the right thing to search for, because there's tons of resources out there in the world too that aren't currently captured by ChatGPT. So I don't want people to think it's a replace all yet. There might be a time where it can be, but yeah, I think it is a positive addition. I want to say I think it's great for first drafts. I've used it for learning objectives. I've used it for overviews of course. I've used it for helping me tailor material to different levels of learners. So I'm like, help me tailor this course for entry-level professionals versus senior executives, and what might be different between that. It's helped me in a lot of ways in that way. I've used it to help me figure out ways to write blog posts for people. I've used it to help me explain difficult concepts. So if I'm facilitating and someone's like, I really don't understand what you're saying, can you give me another example? A lot of times it's very hard for me to think about that example on the spot. So I'm like, hey, why don't we just pull up this and let's see what they come up with? And it's very helpful in that way. And then I'll just underscore something else I think Marianne said earlier, which relates to what Marianne said earlier, which is those who have a responsibility to teach, we're facilitating learning, have a responsibility to learn. And I think that's what everyone here, and that's what we're doing constantly, trying to figure out, okay, what are these tools and how do we use them? And how do we get ourselves ready? Because we know that when the technology surpasses our readiness, it's not good for either party. So we want to be on the same level. We want to develop at the same time as it's growing. And we got to do everything we can to bring people around, and us being leaders in learning is going to help us out too. So.
It looks like Prasanna might be, oh, yeah, Prasanna might be frozen for just a second, but I'm just going to add to what DJ was saying that you've got to practice, you've got to play in it. And just like anything, how do you learn to swim, right? You get in the water, okay? So I was just going to ask Raj, when you first heard about ChatGPT and then you got in via OpenAI, how much time did you devote to it, to learn it?
Marian, I think I took the least amount of time because in every product life cycle, you have early adopters of technology. And I'm one of them, who's very early adopter of the technology. And I can share with you one of the reasons why ChatGPT is so famous. And there are other tools like ChatSonic and many others. Because ChatGPT, the interface is beautiful. Like a lot of people have still not been able to understand the interface pretty well. If you look at the entire interface is designed very, very scientifically. When it starts, it tells you about the capabilities, limitation, and what you can expect out of it. It's there on the first screen. A lot of people do not read it and they skip it. On the left-hand side, it keeps the context very relevant, and it shows you what you have searched and what kind of different searches have given you what kind of different result. On the bottom, again, it tells you, how can you clear chat and how can you give feedback. You can ask on the top of it. There are prompts that people need to know. But believe you me, it did not take me more than a week here and there to play with it. But I agree with DJ, you need to sit on it, you need to play with it. It's a fascinating piece of toy which can teach you a lot of things, in my personal opinion, is that you need to know it as better as you want to get out of it.
Absolutely. And I'll just add to that. Thanks for coming back, Prasanna. I do have to limit myself, generally speaking, right now, unless I have jam-packed with other meetings. I try to get on it about an hour a day. And again, I play, and then I also use it for projects. But again, it's a tool to supplement our own knowledge, and it is not perfect. And it could provide some inaccurate information or not up to date because they cut it off at a certain time. And it might have some incomplete information. So just like DJ said, it's not going to replace us. It's going to supplement us, but make us look even better.
Yeah.
Can I add one more thing? I'll just say, I think we should also be thinking about what do we do with this newfound capacity? Once we can outsource all of these manual tasks to ChatGPT, do we use that free time to be more strategic, or do we find more manual labor to take on? Because this can really elevate your performance if you use that time that you get back strategically. And so I think everyone should be thinking, like, how do I strategically leverage this tool to help me take myself to the next level?
Indeed. And just to add a small little thing, AI is actually, as you beautifully said, DJ, it's gotten everywhere, from the camera, mobile phone cameras that we use to, as simple as YouTube when you watch. Everywhere it's AI. It's just that we do not realize it. ChatGPT has made it more fascinating because its first, I would say, generative pre-trained generator, which could actually speak anything from a human history to future of humans. And I think that fascinated me because it just summed up the entire knowledge at one place. And with 175 billion, points, and now multiplying it 10 times more with ChatGPT-4, it's only fascinating human race more. And that's why it's so much talked about. But yeah, in my belief, AI is here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, awesome discussion, Raj, Marianne, and DJ. So, Raj, before we move ahead, I just want to double click on the drawbacks point a little bit. Do you see, like Marianne mentioned, right? It might generate like not so factual information sometimes. DJ also mentioned a couple of points. Do you have any specific drawbacks that you have seen in ChatGPT?
Indeed, I have experienced a lot of drawback. I would not say that I've only experienced everything great about it. Yes, I have faced multiple pitfall. And the first one is it happened as early as today morning. I asked, what's the weather? That's a simple thing that you can ask, but it couldn't ask because it's clearly said that it generates response, says that my data is as old as 2021. So obviously what I call it as the power of now is missing in it, because it's not as relevant as in now. So it lacks that. And if it lacks that, the race, we are talking about the change, the disruption that's happening. Now, if you do not know what's happening today, you are lacking something very, 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 very critical, because past is history. You need to know the present to move to future. So it certainly lacks the power of now, that I'll say is the first thing. Second is, because it's so straightforward, it's absolutely artificial intelligence, it's not human intelligence. I would say that it cannot make sometime judgment which is based on ethics, judgment which is based on very, very small real-time life examples, and it is training itself more. You can even ask what I mean by that. You can even ask bad things by asking in the right manner. Now, I'm not going to tell you what did I search for it, but I did search something for it. I did ask for something bad, but I asked in a good way. How can I avoid doing this? It still answered, which shocked me. So I think in ChatGPT-4, that's what they're claiming. It is even going to take it away. But yes, if you ask even bad thing in the right way, it does answer. The third thing I'd say, and I completely agree with Marianne, what she was mentioning. Somewhere I felt the quality and reliability was not that great. I felt that because I'm a part of some of these councils, I could feel that the content could have been a little more richer. I felt it was very generic response which was thrown at me, but that helped me a lot, but I expected a little more out of it. Another thing I would say that sometimes it couldn't differentiate my perspective, which I wanted to ask in reality. So I had to actually search the same point 5 times to get where I wanted to reach. And that even frustrated me a little bit. I would not say much. Maybe my expectation from ChatGPT is a little high, but the same question I had to ask 5 times in different manners to get what I was wanting to get. And I think last and most important, it's artificial intelligence. We need to accept it. It's not human intelligence. So you need to keep on giving feedback to it. It'll be keep on learning. But I'm very hopeful in the next 5 years with this amount of data churning, which is happening on the top of it. We are not very far away where it'll start giving better responses, and these things that I talked about in my personal journey, they will go away.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. Yeah, so the point of power of now, right? So I definitely believe that's something missing. That I'm totally with you on that. For me, one of the biggest kind of drawbacks that I have seen, as I'm coming from a tech background per se, so it doesn't give the probability of its answers in a way, right? If you ask something, it's like it writes out the response, but how much is the probability of being it right or wrong? That for me is like, okay, I don't know how much confident you are when you are typing this out. That's something I would like to see in going ahead releases, at least in the developer versions of it.
See, that's my worry, Prasanna, and I wish we would never reach. What you are asking is something called as, and you would know it, it's called as point of singularity, where there is no difference in between a human brain and an AI. I wish the day does not come ever. We don't want to see a Terminator 3 or Terminator 2 movie here, where Arnold and a couple of other cyborgs are there. So what I'm saying that, and some people do predict that we will reach the point of singularity by year 2050, but the day it starts making judgment. And that's what you're saying, that it'll be able to give you a definitive answer. Will be certainly a day when it'll start reaching a point of singularity. And I wish and I pray to God we never reach there. But if we do, I certainly expect that that day we still have to make judgment on the top of it, because we are backed by something called as emotions. We are made with human flesh, brain, judgment, emotions, and that it can never have. So that's my personal view. But yeah, I'm a little passionate about it. So that's my view on it.
So I'm given the interest of time, I have to kind of jump a little. So I want to clear the buzz a little, right? So what actually ChatGPT does in a way is it has combined two very solid ideas together. We all like to chat with friends on social media, on WhatsApps, iMessages, everything, and artificial intelligence. So you can ask something in a very, very natural, lucid manner is definitely and OpenAI, while releasing their one of the videos, also said that it will be a great thing to have an assistant that actually works on most of the use cases, kind of thing. So that's holding intelligent conversations is what it has achieved in a way. If you can go on adding the context, it can summarize for you, it can compile codes for you, it can synthesize information, and so on and so forth. So that has not happened never in a way. So as Raj was mentioning before, Google tells you what's out there for your keywords on the internet, but ChatGPT tells you what's there for you for that particular prompt, and that's a very, very strong idea in a way. So Marian, I want to bring it to you. So how do you see this fitting into overall learning and development, training, change management, HR as an industry? Where do you see things moving on that front? Any kind of long, short answers on that?
Absolutely. Well, I think as learning and development professionals, we have to be the leaders in our industries and our companies and our businesses, which means we've got to get in with the C-suite and educate them on ChatGPT. If you're a busy CEO, you might not have that hour a day to play. But yet you've heard about it. You've heard it on the news. You've seen it on LinkedIn, and it's all around us, and they may feel left out. So we need to be that conduit that helps them understand what it is today and what it can be and what it may be in the future. And so the idea is that you want to educate them that we can't let go all of our trainers and our content developers and our instructional designers. That would be a big mistake, because it's, again, going to help their lives be better and easier, but we still have to verify. And just like DJ said, we have to use that time more strategically, but it's going to be a balance, and it's not going to happen, in 1 week. One other thing is that you're going to have to educate the C-suite and your leaders, especially when it comes to paying for additional supplements. For example, there is a paid version of ChatGPT called ChatGPT Plus, and it's like $20 a month. And again, that is, for a higher level. If you're going to invest in something like that, you're going to have to prove a return on investment. We're also going to have to let the powers that be know that this is, again, not a perfect platform. It does have some bias and some, questionable responses, because it doesn't take, like Raj said, the emotions into it. And there's also some privacy concerns. And of course, there's a level of complexity, especially when it comes to the prompts. But the thing is that we need to grab them and take them along with us so they feel part of the process, and they will appreciate you being that catalyst that helps them stay up with the fast and rapid transitions.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I mean, I'm with you, Marianne, when you say that it's like the instructional designers and the trainers, they are not going away. So they might make use of ChatGPT, but we still need to kind of structure, synthesize, and do all those things from the training perspective. So, DJ, I want to kind of bring you in a little while we discussed capabilities and limitations in a way. I want to kind of ask you whether how do you approach? I mean, how do you approach when we what should we consider, whether to when you want to rely or when you want to take an advantage of these kind of technologies? Is there any SOP that you can mention, or what are your initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think first of all, it's very critical to start with why, because there is a lot of ways now to get anything done. Like if you need to write a blog post, if you need to write a performance review, you ask yourself, do I need to do this tool? Why this? Why now? Why me? Right? So I think like you should be considering, is ChatGPT the right tool for this task, right? And I'm using the example now, for example, performance management. We do year-end reviews, we do mid-year reviews, and I've seen managers just like go into ChatGPT and say, write a performance review for my employee. And they write something. They don't know your employee. They don't, it writes, but I think be generous with it, right? So if you say, here's what I'm thinking, they've accomplished these things, they've done this, overall they're performing well, can you help me expand on my thinking? That's a much better use case because you started with why. It's like, I'm using this tool because I have a general idea of how this person has performed, but maybe I don't know all the exact right words to write a full performance review. Or maybe I just have a few sentences, but I need to expand on this. That's a much better use case because you started with the why. I think also, like, generally, if you're in a leadership position in HR and organization, you should think about what is the organization's readiness for bringing on a tool like this, right? Because if they're not ready yet, they have to get there. You got to move them there. Like you just can't bring it in one day and expect them to be ready. Like one of the things of organizational leadership is change management. And you do need to move people, because I know we're early adopters, but there are some resistors. I talk to people every day who are like, this is great, but it'll never do this. It'll never do that. It'll never do that. And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's already doing those things. And it's doing it probably better than you can. So I think you do need to invest in some of that organizational change management. And you do need to consider, like, what are the impacts on the employees, because there are some cultural nuances. For example, I do a lot of work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you are using ChatGPT or outsourcing the writing of some content and you don't do a check, you might put something out there on your blog, on your company's LinkedIn, that's not necessarily considering a cultural nuance or something that just changed recently. For example, I think Raj mentioned the example of what's the weather, but you might ask it like, who is the CEO of Twitter? Definitely doesn't know that, right? So those things can change so fast. And even the cultural language, like in diversity, equity, inclusion, it seems like every day there's a new way to discuss things, like sensitive topics. And if you don't have up-to-date knowledge about, all right, we're not using this term anymore, we're using this term, you might get yourself in a lot of trouble. And it could be very costly for your company. So I think it's a powerful tool. It's an amazing tool. Don't take the people out of it. Start with the why and be strategic.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, the questions that it can't answer, that actually a lot of so why Google is still required. I mean, believe me, few people have asked this question, right? Is Google still needed? I mean, I was like, yes, because Google is like a fallback answer for everything, right? You can query anything and it will have at least an answer to your question. So be it maps, be it your location, be it your book reviews or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, it's early days. Given the time, Raj, I want to quickly come to you for your favorite question, future of AI. So I know we double clicked on this when you said that we never reach the singularity aspects of it and so on. But if we consider a little bit tactically, maybe in next 2 years, or maybe little on a longer horizon, like for next 7 years, like 2030, what do you see where it is going, and what sort of impact is it's going to have on the HR side of the things, like learning and training and change management and so on?
Sure. Prasanna, I've done a lot of research in this area of AI even before it's became this popular as we are talking. And I'll also talk about why ChatGPT is called ChatGPT and what's the future of it in a couple of seconds from now onward. See, as humans, how do we perceive our world? Perception is what we are made up of. Am I right? By the time we get, by the time we go to office, every time we are percepting, we are comprehending, we are making judgment of our world. We make it through 5 sensory organs that we have. Either we see, either we touch, either we smell, these 5 organs which are, and one of the most essential is when we see, and what we see is what we read. So if you look at ChatGPT, the simplest form, which is words, because once a word is written, you cannot change it. Am I right? So the AI first has become so popular, and it is called as ChatGPT because it's text first, and text is trying to make something out of the perceptual world that you're looking into. ChatGPT 4 is about audio, which is about whisper, and voice is getting added to it. So now from what you see is now what you hear. And here is complicated because it's not simple as written, because once you have written, it's there. But when you speak, the speech is of different kind. Indians speak very differently from what people speak back then in America, vis-a-vis what people speak in other part of the world. So speech is a little more complicated, and that's why the obvious progression that you see from there is to speech, and from speech it's going to come to moving objects, which is nothing but movies. And you see ChatGPT 4 bringing some basic aspect of comprehending pictures, talking about a little more about it. Fast forward, you would see another 2 aspects getting added to it, which is the sense. When you touch, how do you feel about it? And you will have AI sensory very soon coming into it. And last and most important, the taste, when you get into it and when you decide that whether it's something to be done. The day it happens, you would reach the point of singularity where there is no difference in between a human intelligence and AI. Obviously, I'm not saying that we will be 100% converted into cyborg, but yes, the day is not very far away. And that day when it will happen, we need to also evolve at the same time. Our lives have to evolve at the same pace. We need to be far more worried about a third aspect which will hit us at that time, which will be security. And you would see more AI is going to grow, more worry are going to be there around 2 aspects. One is security, and second is energy. More energy consumption that's going to happen because these tools consume phenomenal amount of energy to stay alive. And that's where I see the obvious progression happening of AI. I'm a strong believer of point of singularity is going to reach in year 2040 or 2050, somewhere in between. It is going to happen. And I think exciting time is ahead. We need to see that how do humans control this AI? But it's not going any far away. And as I said, it's going to merge a lot of technologies. If you look back in last 20, 30 years, the amount of disruption, the amount of change that has happened, we talked a lot about new things, which is, we talked about blockchain, we talked about Meta, we talked about ML. Actually, what AI is doing is AI is going to sit as a layer beneath all this and make things happen for you as the way you think like human. So I'm very excited about future of AI and point of singularity whenever we will reach. But I feel that most sensory organs are going to get added to it. We already see it's happening in form of speech now, very soon comprehending moving objects, very soon touch and taste. And that's where it's going to grow. And that's what the future of AI looks like. That's my belief.
Yeah, wow, that's a little scary, but still optimistic, I believe. Marianne, do you have any final thoughts on the future of AI? We are going to see it live in action now. I have like few prompts that I want to just share, and I'm sure most of us have already tried it, but I just want to be out there and try a few things. So I'm just stopping my screen for a bit, and Marianne, if you could share your thoughts while I gear up everything.
Absolutely. I would say keep seeking knowledge. Don't be a passenger, be a driver. And not only go on ChatGPT to find some knowledge, which again started, they stopped the world in 2021, but also research what's going on in Google and get in on the LinkedIn. And I sent you folks, I believe, a couple of newsletters that I look at pretty much on a daily basis. But the main thing is that look at what's out there. Raj has a great pulse on what's going on. And the other day, I learned from another colleague about a product called Synthesa, which is, again, for $30 a month, you can do artificial intelligence video creation, okay? Which in one sense, as an instructional designer, you're like, oh my gosh, you don't need me anymore. On the contrary, again, good stuff in, good stuff out. And so the idea is that they're not going to create it for you, but this is, again, another one of dozens and dozens and perhaps hundreds of new programs that have AI at that base level that will help us. And that's the thing, is it's going to make our lives easier. But again, we have to control that, and we need to, again, educate ourselves and ask questions. And that's the greatest thing, is that this is the time to ask questions, so you feel like you're not being left behind. So we wish you wonderful luck.
And this is the time to ask questions, literally. Okay, all right. So I'm going to share my screen again. I have few prompts, I would say, that we have gathered. So those who don't know, so this is the screen. Once you log into ChatGPT, this is how it looks. I have a plus version of it, so I can select a model now. So I'm currently using GPT-4 model, which is kind of launched yesterday, not even 24 hours, if I'm correct. So I'm going to use this particular model, and I need to move this somewhere. Just a second. Okay. So I have few kind of generic prompts which you can ask. So I'm just starting with, what are some effective ways to build employee engagement, right? So it comes back. Okay, I need to move this somewhere. Okay. Yeah. And believe me, this is not a text which is copied from internet. So that's the biggest difference. So if you are looking for such things directly available on internet, you are not going to get this, because at this point, when I ask this question, this is what it is thinking and writing it out. So it is actually creating a text for my prompt. It's as personalized as that. And as you can see, it is like very goal oriented, bullet points, and so on and so forth. So you can actually see there might be, I'm sure there might be few things which might not be relevant, but there are some interesting points that it can bring about. And you can always stop generating. So if you're okay with what you have already, you can just stop generating and so on. Then I'm going to try one more. Let's say a little bit comprehensive, right? So I'm going to say that, let's imagine there is a Acme corporation. It's 1,000 people employee, and they have certain demographics, they have some training needs, and so on. So we are going to give this as a prompt and ask it to generate a training plan altogether. So I'm just pasting it here, and it is going to create a training plan for the requirement that we have given here. So I mean, it's cool, right? So I'm not saying that this is going to be the plan that you can submit in front of people, in front of your management. But if you're struggling to get started, if you're if you want to have a baseline, this is going to help you, right? I mean, it's so wonderful that it can actually generate a nice prompt, which is nice answer for your exact prompt. And based on the budgets that you have mentioned, based on the things that you have mentioned, like our demographics is like 30 to 50 years, and gender ratios and educations and so on and so forth. So it can actually understand all this and come up with a plan. Is it in itself is a big achievement, because and you can see the difference, right? You cannot ask such questions to Google, so that is like out of picture already. If you ask such questions to Google, it's going to throw some saying that it's not, I don't have anything that can be told here, and so on and so forth. So from the simple questions to the complicated design questions it can have. And I think we are already at time. So thank you, Marianne, thank you, DJ, and thank you, Raj, for having this wonderful conversation with me. And we are looking forward to have you again. We are already 2 minutes past our scheduled time. Apologies for that. Last couple of statements. So we have like, we are also gearing up for our own ChatGPT version of our product, and you can actually book that or join the wait list here, and we are happy to get you on board as quickly as possible. So if you could just sign up for this, and we'll let you know what are the next steps.